The soft hum of the ceiling fan echoed through the dimly lit bedroom, casting rhythmic shadows against the walls. I had fallen asleep earlier than usual, lulled by the day's exhaustion and the comforting thought that my life, while not perfect, was peaceful. Emma, my wife of 10 years, had kissed me goodnight, her lips brushing my forehead like a whisper. That was our routine, brief, quiet, familiar. Arthur, our 8-year-old son, had gone to bed hours before me, or so I thought. Sometime in the middle of the night, as dreams blurred the lines of reality, I felt a small shift beside me. Not abrupt, but deliberate. My eyes fluttered open briefly, only to find a small shadow climbing onto the bed. Arthur. His presence was unusual at this hour. He hadn't crept into our room since he was 5. Still half asleep, I reached over, gently pulling him close. "What's wrong, bud?" I mumbled, my voice thick with sleep. He didn't answer, just nestled into my chest, his tiny fingers clutching the fabric of my shirt. His body was tense, like he was holding in something far heavier than a child his age should carry. I should have asked again, pressed him, but I didn't. I was too tired, too trusting of the silence we'd grown used to. I held him tighter, the way a father does when he believes a hug can chase away nightmares. In the quiet, my thoughts drifted to Emma. She had been different lately. Not in the obvious ways, no shouting matches, no slammed doors, but in the subtle erosion of connection. Her smiles didn't reach her eyes. Her laughter, once spontaneous, now felt rehearsed. We used to talk late into the night, about everything and nothing. But recently, our conversations had been reduced to legit events, groceries, appointments. We were living in the same house, sharing the same bed, but it felt like we were on parallel tracks, barely crossing. Still, I didn't suspect anything then. Not really. I chalked it up to routine, the slow fading of passion into companionship. Love evolves, I told myself. Maybe this was just its quieter phase. Arthur let out a soft sigh, his breath warm against my chest. I kissed the top of his head, reassured by the small, precious weight of him beside me. "I'm right here," I whispered. "You're safe." He didn't respond, but his body relaxed, inch by inch, until sleep claimed him again. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of peace. A father's peace, but it would be short-lived, because while I was sleeping, my son Arthur entered my room not just to find comfort, but to unknowingly plant the first seed of a truth that would unravel everything I thought I knew. And I was too blind, too trusting, to see it. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting golden streaks across the kitchen floor. I sat at the table, sipping lukewarm coffee, my mind still tangled in fragments of last night. Arthur sat across from me, poking at his cereal with more interest than he ever showed eating it. Emma stood by the sink, humming a tune I didn't recognize as she scrolled through her phone. "Did you sleep better, Arthur?" I asked, keeping my tone light. He nodded without looking up. "Yeah, that's good," I replied, though my voice held a note of curiosity. "You came into our room last night. Did something scare you?" His spoon froze mid-stir. He glanced up briefly, then down again. "I just heard sounds. I couldn't sleep." "Sounds?" I asked gently. He shrugged, like talking. "But maybe it was just a dream." Emma turned around, her face a careful blend of surprise and amusement. "He probably heard the wind," she said quickly. "It rattled the windows all night." I nodded slowly, unsure why her explanation felt rehearsed. Emma kissed Arthur on the head, tousled his hair, then grabbed her bag. "I'm heading out early. Big day at work." She kissed my cheek on her way out, her lips cool, her perfume lingering. I watched her leave, the click of her heels fading down the hallway like a countdown. Arthur's eyes followed her too, but the worry in them didn't fade. Over the next few days, small things began to gnaw at me like a thread pulling at the seams of something once whole. Emma became increasingly distracted. She locked her phone more often. She smiled less. Conversations ended in half sentences. Once, I walked into the living room and saw her hastily shut her laptop. She smiled and said it was just work, but her voice held a sharpness, a defensiveness I hadn't heard before. Arthur noticed it too. He had always been sensitive, emotionally attuned, in ways that made me proud and protective. But now, he was quieter, more observant. One evening, I found him sitting by the staircase, staring toward our bedroom door. "You okay, champ?" asked. He nodded. "I just don't like when Mom closes the door." I frowned. "She's probably just tired." He hesitated. "Do you trust Mom?" The question landed like a stone in my chest. "Of course," I replied, but the words felt fragile, like glass ready to crack. That night, lying in bed beside Emma, I listened to the silence between us. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, but mine wasn't. I replayed Arthur's words again and again. "Do you trust Mom?" The question echoed louder than any answer I could give. The drawing arrived, quietly slipped beneath my office door like a secret that had waited too long to be spoken. I was finishing a report, surrounded by the soft hum of my desk lamp and the tapping of keys, when I noticed the corner of a page peeking in. Curious, I bent down and pulled it closer. It was done in crayon childish strokes on a white sheet, the kind Arthur usually used for his school projects. Asterisk, but this wasn't homework. It was a confession. Asterisk, two stick figures stood side by side in what looked like our bedroom, one labeled Mom, the other marked with a question mark in the background. Another figure labeled Dad lay in bed, eyes closed, unaware. The silence in the room thickened, the air suddenly too heavy to breathe. Asterisk, I stared at it for minutes, unmoving. My hands trembled as I turned the paper over, hoping it was part of some innocent game, but the back was blank. The message was clear. Arthur had seen something he shouldn't have, something he couldn't explain with words. Asterisk, I found him curled up on the couch, arms wrapped around his knees, watching cartoons without really watching. I sat beside him and placed the drawing gently on the coffee table. He wouldn't look at it. Asterisk, Arthur, I said softly. What is this? Asterisk, his eyes filled with tears immediately, and he buried his face in my side. I didn't know what to do, he whispered. I saw them when I woke up that night. I came into your room because I didn't want to hear it again. I froze. Hear what? Asterisk, he looked up, face red and wet with shame. Mom and another man. Talking. Laughing. Then the door closed. I had thought maybe I dreamed it, but then I kept seeing him. Not his face, but he was there. Asterisk, the betrayal struck not like a sharp stab, but a slow, crushing weight. I wrapped my arms around him, shielding him from a truth too big for his age. You did the right thing, buddy. You told me. That's all that matters. Asterisk, later that night, I waited until Emma was asleep, then took her phone from the nightstand. I didn't want to. I had never crossed that line before, but now, silence was no longer an option. Asterisk, I scrolled through messages. At first, everything looked normal. Then I found a hidden folder of chats, late-night conversations with someone saved only as E.T. The messages were flirtatious, intimate, and undeniably real. There were photos, hotel bookings, inside jokes I didn't recognize. Each word stabbed deeper than the last. I sat in the darkness for hours, unable to speak, unable to cry. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because the person I once knew was gone. Asterisk, and my son, my 8-year-old son, had seen the truth before I did. The morning after I discovered the truth, the house felt colder, not in temperature, but in soul. Emma moved through the kitchen like always, brewing coffee, slicing fruit, asking Arthur what he wanted for breakfast. She didn't notice my silence. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. Asterisk, Arthur barely looked up from his cereal. His spoon moved in circles, his appetite lost, two things too heavy for a child to carry. Asterisk, I stood there, watching them. Two people I loved more than life itself, one innocent, one the cause of our unraveling. Emma, I said, breaking the quiet. She turned to me, half smile in place. Yeah. Asterisk, we need to talk. Alone. Asterisk, her smile faltered for just a second. Just long enough to confirm what I already knew. Asterisk, she followed me into the hallway, arms folded tight across her chest. What's this about? Asterisk, I took a deep breath, pulled out the folded drawing from my pocket, and handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Her face paled. Asterisk, I found the messages, I said, voice low but firm. The photos, the hotel bookings. Asterisk, for a moment, she said nothing. The woman I had shared a decade with, the mother of my child, stood before me as a stranger. Asterisk, you went through my phone, she asked, her voice trembling with something between guilt and defiance. Asterisk, I did. After our son handed me this, because he didn't know how else to tell me what he saw. Asterisk, tears welled in her eyes, and for the first time, I saw the weight of her choices settle on her shoulders. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she whispered. Asterisk, but it did, I replied. And Arthur knew something was wrong before I did. You didn't just betray me, Emma, you betrayed him. Asterisk, she sank onto the hallway bench, covering her face with her hands. I never meant to hurt him, or you. Asterisk, but you did. Asterisk, the silence stretched between us, thick with finality. There was no yelling, no dramatic confrontation, just the hollow ache of disappointment and love. Turned sour. Asterisk, later that day, I sat with Arthur on the back porch. The sky above was painted with soft clouds, the kind that promised nothing but silence. Asterisk, is Mom leaving? He asked, his voice small. Asterisk, maybe, I said honestly, we're figuring it out. But no matter what happens, I'm here. That's not going to change. Asterisk, he leaned into me, and I wrapped my arm around his shoulder. In that moment, I wasn't a betrayed husband, I was just a father trying to hold his world together. Asterisk, love had betrayed me, but it had also given me Arthur, and in him, I found something real, something worth starting over for. Asterisk, the story wasn't the one I thought I was living, but it was mine now, and I would write the next chapter with honesty even if it began with heartbreak.